Alright people, what's up? It's your boy Alex, I'm back. Yes, I'm on location. I'm across the street from washing my clothes. Gotta wash my clothes. I'm supposed to wash my work clothes. But I did promise you that in today's YouTube video that I was gonna talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Ben Roethlisberger, aka Big Ben, versus Ray Lewis. Who is better? NFL, who is better? This is episode 3, and unfortunately I would love to record this inside the house where I don't have to suffer you people, subject you guys and make you guys suffer to seeing cars drive by back and forth. It's just unfortunate that my uncle's truck is still not fixed. They're giving him the runaround. They say one minute they'll fix it, next minute they don't want to fix it. So until things return back to normal, we're going to continue to film these great NFL videos on location. It's going to be a limited time only on location, because eventually someone's going to get up and tattletale and call the police on me, and the police going to be like, hey kid, you can't film without a film permit. At some point I'm going to get caught. At some point. I've been lucky so far, but you know what they say, the old saying, eventually, sooner or later, your luck runs out. Eventually. All right, now let's get into the video. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers has always been one of the most powerful and one of the most interesting football franchises of all times. This franchise has won 6 championships in 30 years. I should say either in 30 to 35 years, they've won 6 championships, 6 NFL Super Bowls, not all at once. That's why I say in 30 to 35 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers have won 6 Super Bowls. And currently the last 2 championships that made it 6 was due to Ben Roethlisberger in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now in the draft, he came around 2002, 2003. So somewhere between 2000 and 2002, he showed up. Stands at 6'3" or 6'4", weighs in at 250 pounds of muscle, and is a force of nature. The guy can play football. The guy can throw. He can block. He can knock people out. But his position is being a quarterback. And as big as he is, he's by far one of the biggest quarterbacks we've ever seen in the game of football. And quite frankly, most people don't have any idea on what to do when they try to block the middle and get through to him. And even when he's injured, the guy isn't afraid to play injured. He's played injured 7 or 8 times in his NFL career. Now, some people love the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some people hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the time we got to 2005, they went to the Super Bowl, and I think they beat the Arizona Cardinals. I think Kurt Warner and the Arizona Cardinals, that's who he beat for his first championship. I'll have to double check that. But he did win his first Super Bowl. And then later in 2010, he found himself back in the Super Bowl. But before that, he would go back, I think, again in 2008 or 2009. And Big Ben would win his second Super Bowl championship. And before you know it, he won 2 Super Bowls. And that's how Pittsburgh got their historic rise of 6 championships. But then he had a chance to do something in the franchise that only a few football teams are able to do. And that is win a 3rd Super Bowl championship. Of course, they went against the Green Bay Packers, and we all know how that turned out. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ben Roethlisberger lost his first Super Bowl. So he wins 2 championships in a 5-year period, but then he loses in his 3rd Super Bowl. Now, you know that song that Janet Jackson made famous 25 years ago, What Have You Done For Me Lately? Well, that's what you feel with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like, yeah, in 13 years you've gone to the Super Bowl 3 times, but what have you done lately for me lately? And with all the injuries that has piled up on Big Ben, aka Ben Roethlisberger, you start to wonder, will this franchise ever return back to greatness? Will this team ever return back to its former glory? And some people still feel like that Ben Roethlisberger's got maybe 2 or 3 more years left to try to go after another shot at the title before his incredible, illustrious NFL career is officially over, if you know what I mean. Now let's get to the other football team that's also known for being on the historic rise, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, before they were called the Baltimore Ravens, they were called the Baltimore Colts. This is like 50 years ago in the history of football. You know, they had won 4 championships, 4 Super Bowls, and then the owner decided he didn't want to be in the city of Baltimore because they didn't want to build a football stadium. You know, typical city. You know, they pay their taxes, but they don't feel like the certain urgency to want to pay for a new football stadium. So the Baltimore Colts left Baltimore, an angry, vengeful city, retaliated, an angry mob, and they moved to Indianapolis, where they would now be called the Indianapolis Colts, where they would win Super Bowls once again. And this city, Baltimore, was teamless without a football team. You know, they had no basketball team, no football team. All they had was a baseball team. And finally, 20 years later in the NFL, when we got into the 1990s, like around 1995, 1996, or somewhere around 97, is where Ray Lewis was drafted in the NFL and sent to this new team called the Baltimore Ravens. This team that had history of championships from its past 50 years, but currently hadn't done anything. Finally, he told them, he made a prophetic prediction. He predicted that in 1999 or in the year 2000, the Baltimore Ravens would win a Super Bowl. And they did. I mean, they actually did win a Super Bowl. Like, it was actually a shock. You know, 10 years in the NFL, and finally he wins a Super Bowl. Now, I know that people are going to say, well, he went to a nightclub in Atlanta, he was messing around, he was drinking alcohol, and all of a sudden someone got murdered and he got convicted of the charge. Yeah, that did actually happen. Like, yeah, it did actually happen. But people forgave him for it because he gave the city something the city was missing in Baltimore, a Super Bowl. And then we fast forward to 10 years after that, and he goes back to the Super Bowl, and who does he beat and knock off for his second championship? The San Francisco 49ers. Now, say what you will about that Super Bowl. A Super Bowl win is a Super Bowl win. Now, Barris or James, whatever the hell he likes to call himself on YouTube, he likes to do these sports conspiracy theories where he likes to theorize that this football team only won because of A, B, C, and D, and things of that nature. Now, even though Ray Lewis is not a quarterback, that he's either a defensive tackle, a tailback, or a wide receiver, and he's not at the quarterback position, he is still by far deemed the leader of the Baltimore Ravens. And I think Baltimore Raven fans will actually agree with me 100%, even though Joe Flacco is actually the leader and the quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens. But the leadership actually came from Ray Lewis. His leadership, his mentorship, his motivation came from him during this difficult time period. Now we have to ask ourselves the billion-dollar question that we all want to ask. Now, even though the Baltimore Ravens won 2 Super Bowls in 20 years, we have to ask ourselves the same question: what has this football team done for us lately? And when we ask who's better, it's hard to answer that question, who's better. I mean, I got to go into some more answers on that. Like, first of all, when we look at Ray Lewis's second championship reign, he was injured. He didn't even play most of the football season. And when we got into the playoffs, he was ready to play in the Super Bowl. And he delivered big in the Super Bowl. So from that standpoint, we could say he's the man, or we could argue he's not the man. Then we got to take into account that Big Ben always plays hurt. Knee injuries, leg injuries, Achilles tendons, an arm, tore, whatever they call it for your abs. The guy just plays hurt all the time. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is one tough son of a bitch. I mean, to be hurt play a whole season, grind that bitch out, and find yourself back in the Super Bowl and trying to win a third Super Bowl, but only to lose to your division rivals or arch nemesis, the Green Bay Packers. That's an impressive feat in itself. And then considering the fact that when it's the Baltimore Ravens, who do they end up facing for their division rival? The Philadelphia Eagles, the New York Giants, right? So there's a lot of questions to ask. Who is better? Ben Roethlisberger, who's gone to the Super Bowl 3 times but won 2 championships and lost once? Or Ray Lewis, who's gone to the Super Bowl 3 times in his NFL career, because they did lose either in that Super Bowl or on their way to the Super Bowl, but then he's won 2 championships. So yeah, you have to sometimes wonder, and I would probably say this might be one of the most controversial videos I've ever made. This might be 50-50 split down the middle. We may never get a 100% clear-cut answer to this question. Baltimore fans will say it's Baltimore. Pittsburgh Steelers fans will argue until pigs can fly in outer space. Yes, I said until pigs can fly in outer space. That is Pittsburgh. I gotta say it's a tie. And I'll tell you why I gotta say it's a tie. Because Ben Roethlisberger's gone to the Super Bowl 3 times. He won 2 championships, but he lost his first Super Bowl in the 3rd time he gone to a Super Bowl. And he lost to the Green Bay Packers. And they haven't returned back to the Super Bowl ever since. And it's because of all the injuries that he's had. They've made the playoffs. They just have not been the same football team that went to the Super Bowl 3 times in a 10-year period. That gave that franchise 6 Super Bowls. The Baltimore Ravens have won 2 Super Bowls, but they have not returned back to the Super Bowl ever since. So I would say at this point it's a tie. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of thumbs down on this video. I'm going to get more thumbs down than thumbs up. I'm going to get more negative comments as time goes on for saying it's a tie. Now, if Ben Roethlisberger had won 3 championships exactly, then the answer would be the Pittsburgh Steelers all the way. But Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens actually went to the Super Bowl twice in 10 years, and every time they go to the Super Bowl, they actually win. So some would say, shouldn't you actually really should say it's the Baltimore Ravens? But to be fair, I gotta say it's a tie. Both players have had injuries. Both players have gone to the Super Bowl 2 to 3 times. Both players are pretty much at the tail end of their career. One actually already retired. The other one's still trying to chase championship number 3. So maybe in the future we would come back and revisit this and then get an actual solid answer. And trust me, there will be people saying you need to come back in the near future and revisit it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And in the 4th episode, we'll be talking about the 2 teams that never became franchises. The New York Giants versus the Seattle Seahawks. Eli Manning, little brother of Peyton Manning, versus Russell Wilson. The 2 football teams that should have been NFL franchises but never was. That'll be a far more interesting video. Until next time, peace.